My dear people of Southern Cameroons, I bring you people revolutionary salutes this day. Today is the 25th of October in the year of our Lord 2018. This day, I want particularly to talk about the need for us to reconsider coming together, to reconsider ignore even all of the bad blood that is going on and putting our heads together to work together, despite the difficulties that may come really with working together. I say so because right now there is a lot that is going on in the ranks of virtually all the groups in this revolution. The lot that is going on is such that it will undermine the progress that we have made thus far. It is true, we can easily be flattered by the talks of those who tell us that yes, we are winning, yes, we are making progress. Of course, our revolution has covered a lot of grounds faster than any other revolution in recent times. All these are not lies, they are effectively true assertions. But at the same time, the mistakes we are making, the fragmentation among us, can cause us also to lose all of the gains that we have made within the twinkle of an eye. And that is something that should really, really not be allowed to happen. It is true that we are doing everything to rather guarantee the occurrence of such a situation. Before I push further in this discussion, let me take this opportunity to actually say my dismay with the arrest of this French language activist Michel Biemtom. A lot of people have actually christened him a total supporter of the Ambazonian cause, but I want to say Michel Biemtom has been a fighter for not only the truth, not only transparency, but he has been someone who also decided with a good lot of us while I was still on ground zero to fight for the hard right in opposition to the easy wrong. Michel Biemtom from time immemorial joined the fight against oppression. He decided to stand on the side of the oppressed against the oppressors, despite the attractiveness that comes with standing on the side of the oppressor for some little seemingly wonderful gains, but which generally wouldn't take you anywhere. Michel Biemtom has fought a lot for democratic change, for transparency in the management of the public good. And when the crisis in the southern Cameroon started, he also was one of the first French-speaking Cameroonians to realize that it made a lot of sense to, say that which is correct, stand by that which is right, despite the troubles, despite the threats from the central government in Yaoundé, despite the threats from the autocratic president of La République du Cameroun, Mr. Paul Biya, and some of his evil-minded lieutenants like Atanga Bonji. So, before Michel Biemtom found himself in the dragnet, he also found the opportunity to say, like every other stakeholder across the world, and even very important observers who have pointed out continually the need for us to consider working together. What is standing in the way of us working together has generally been the anxiety of a good lot of us to want one to be seen as being the only cock that is crowing. Number two, ego. Number three, greed. And number four, I must insist that number four has to do with financial gains. If all of these considerations are not put aside so that we pay attention to those measures, to those actions that will help save the lives of our people on ground zero, we are going to, in the end, have the blood of these people streaming all over our bodies because we refuse to be sensitive to the plight of our people at a certain point in time simply because we believe that we have acquired positions, we believe that we are beginning to have a lot of honors, and we have a social media mob that stands to give us unconditional support even when we are driving everybody deep into the abyss. I like to take this opportunity to draw the attention of this social media mob that the abyss into which you are pushing the people of Southern Cameroon is a very delicate one. If nothing is done, and very quickly too, to stop this evil mob from ruining this revolution, we are going to find ourselves in a very critical situation. Right now, I'd like us to take a look at the number of our people who are being slaughtered on a daily basis because today we have suddenly decided not to be strategic, not to sit down and come out with measures, with strategies that will help reduce the number of casualties on the ground. We rather pay attention to self-glorification, to deification, and especially to permanent fundraising. Fundraising, 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 fundraising. Yet the complaints of Ground Zero continue to stream in every day. No money for this, no money for food, no money for up, no money for down. The tragedy today is that infiltrators are about turning the population against the very young boys and girls who are truly sacrificing their lives to protect the vulnerable ones in our society. The infiltrators have even succeeded in causing some of our very honest and integral gentlemen and women to become, addicted to harassment. On a daily basis, we now get stories of, they'll say Amber boys have knocked at doors and threatened people to get money. Amber boys have gone to meet people selling bikes and seized bikes. Amber boys have up, Amber boys have down. You hear of old women complaining they have been beaten by Amber boys, but I know in my mind pertinently that a lot of those who are doing these things are infiltrators. I had reported in one video that the CPDM elite of the Southwest region, in connivance with people like Njume Franklin, were setting up a squad guided by a retired general in Nigeria that they were going to send especially to the northern zone to carry out all of these kind of exactions on the population so that they will blame it on Amber boys and then see how they turn the population against our own people who are truly fighting relentlessly for their freedom and to protect the vulnerable one of our society from the onslaughts of the soldiers of La République du Cameroun. Sometimes some of these things come up and they are ignored. Some even call them fake, but that is exactly what is happening on the ground right now. If you want to know, ask yourself, who are those who burnt down Mr. John Frundi's residence? But of course, find out few seconds after that incident, the first individual to put the pictures on his Facebook page was Njume Franklin. How did Njume Franklin know? How did Njume Franklin get the information, the images, and the everything just minutes after it happened? This is exactly what I had talked about. Because they said the people who were causing havoc in the southern zone were from the northern zone. And so the elite told themselves that if they don't cause the same havoc in the northern zone, they are going to say that it is they who are against the new this government and they are going to lose appointments. So this havoc being unleashed on our people are mostly by boys sponsored by the CPDM elite of the southern zone and who are under the direct control and command of people like Njume Franklin, of people like Ekema Patrick, and of people like Atanga Ponji. Rather unfortunately, that is the situation that we are facing. But now it is difficult for us to be able to stamp out those boys because of the disunity in our ranks, because of the infighting, because of the group loyalties. Because of these group loyalties, we are unable to quickly come together to easily identify such infiltrators and weed them out. These are things that we can only resolve when we begin to work together in a strategic manner, when we begin to set objectives and not only work on the calendar of La République du Cameroun. And this situation is going to even get worse in the days ahead as we have decided to plunge into something called local government area by local government area, or call it county by county, whatever name, which is an approach of fragmentation. Why do I say it's an approach of fragmentation? This approach is coming because of a failure in leadership. We have failed to provide the effective kind of leadership that will help bring total cohesion with a united force. How do you bring a fragmented lot to face a united force like the soldiers of La République du Cameroon with the various defense groups like the gendarmes, the soldiers, the police, presidential guard, all operating in total unison and in total synergy? This approach will only cause us to have individuals come up with village militias left and right, poorly trained, poorly equipped, without any coordination, and the net result will be more failure, more deaths. And if we don't arrest that situation very fast, we are going to get ourselves to blame for having pushed our people, pushed our unsuspecting people who have put their trust in our leadership into the abyss. I like to go away from this because I think it is food for thought. It is an opportunity for us to rethink each time a strategy comes up and people say this approach is not correct. We shouldn't look at it because, oh, this approach is being opposed because it is coming from this or that group. Let us learn to be Anglo-Saxon. Anglo-Saxonism means open debate, means a clear mind to looking at things, means constructive criticism, means if we take a measure and someone says it is not correct, we stop, look back and try to re-examine it to see if at all what is being said is correct, rather than jumping out straight very fast to begin vilifying whoever has brought up such an opinion simply because we feel that because it comes from our group, we must support it even if it is wrong. We have to do a constant rethink. I believe, and very strongly so, that those who have made up their minds that they will fight, that they will defend themselves because they are under siege, under attack, should be encouraged to work together, should be encouraged to come together, should be encouraged to have total synergy among themselves. And if we want to give them assistance, we should give them assistance in a comprehensive manner. Let us follow a clear approach that is inclusive. Let us follow a clear approach that is pragmatic, not trying to take the easy wrong. Because the approach we are taking right now is the easy wrong. True, they may generate more income to quarters that definitely are, bent generally on income, but it is not going to score the goal that is desired. I want to leave from that and talk on some other very important issue concerning this revolution. And this is very important because we have a voice that's becoming stronger and stronger, not because it is scoring points, but because it wants to exploit the desperation of the people. This voice is working in tandem with the strategy of La République du Cameroun. When Mr. Laurent Esso visited Belgium and some other parts of Europe, within the framework of some visits that were organized, that they claimed that they were sending members of government to go out and talk to the diaspora about the situation happening in Cameroon. And he returned from Belgium and wrote a report. I had a copy of that report and I made a video in which I explained succinctly what Mr. Laurent Esso wrote in his report and his proposals to the presidency of La République du Cameroon. Sometimes we listen, but we don't take note. Sometimes we simply call them fake news. But I want to reiterate this because it is important for people to see what I said, which is now in total manifestation. Mr. Esso said in that report, before long, I'm going to make that report, the entire report, public, so that you understand clearly what I'm talking about. Mr. Esso said in that report that during his tour, he noticed that there were some Federalist undertones, that there was a school that was not very favorable to total independence for Southern Cameroons, but that felt that if they could achieve, a return to the federal system, whatever form of federal system, it could be just enough. And so his proposal to the government was that they should encourage that voice, that federalist voice, give it, a lot of strength, sponsor it, and even make sure they add a lot of, resources to strengthen that voice. Not because the government is interested in a return to the federal system, not because the government is willing to guarantee that there will ever be any form of federation, because according to Mr. Eso, the system as it is now must be maintained as it is. But that should be used as a kind of diversion. That should be used to water down the efforts of all of those who are already getting too strong, demonstrating to the world why the people of Southern Cameroons deserve their total independence, their total freedom, why the people of Southern Cameroons deserve to have their decolonization process completed. Today, we can see for ourselves that a lot is being done. Look at, if I'm not mistaken, I have seen a flyer going out there with the picture of our own Dr. Fontem Afoteka, who is being allowed to come to the United States of America to talk about the Federalist option. Recall, Dr. Fontem Afoteka was grounded in Cameroon from the time he left prison, and his passport was confiscated. It was never given back to him at the same time that of Dr. Agbogbala was handed back to him. Fontem Afoteka's passport was withheld until a lot of frantic efforts were being made left and right by a lot of people to see if they could give him the possibility to move. Now, I am convinced that the government must have pressured and pressured and pressured him that he must go out there and talk federalism. It is certainly on those counts that they have not only released his passport, but made it possible for him to travel to the United States to come and talk federalism. If you look again very keenly, all measures must have been taken to ensure that when Mr. Fontem Afoteka gets out of Cameroon, he doesn't decide to stay out of Cameroon or take refuge somewhere and decide not to carry out that assignment. There must be some checks that have been kept left and right. This is continually in fulfillment of that approach that was proposed by Mr. Laurent Esso. I want us to pay clear attention to this, and I want the people of Southern Cameroons to know that they are being used. I'm convinced that even Dr. Fontem Afoteka will not be talking this with his clear mind, with his clear heart and soul, because he should be under a kind of duress that he will not have the courage to explain to everyone for either his safety or the safety of his family or the safety of some other thing, some other strings that are being pulled on him. My dear people of Southern Cameroons, this is the time for us to grow extremely wise. This is the time for us to pay clear attention to everything that is happening. I want to give you clear indications that La République du Cameroun will never, ever return to the federal system. They will cause you to mirage it. That is why the government is now extremely favorable to that AAC3 conference that is being organized by Munzu, and which is, which conference have done everything to drag in Cardinal Toumi. If you listen to all the talks, I followed a private conversation Dr. Munzu had with someone the other day, and I was embarrassed that he could pay attention to, some silly things like saying frustrated that, well, John Bakuro released his letter that he wrote to the presidency of the Republic, and they were making a mockery of him. People said things about him, and he was like showing his youthful pictures. So look at me. How do you look at that picture? That's when I was young, handsome boy. Can you compare me to John Bakuro? And I wonder whether the issues about comparing my looks to that of Dr. Munzo, I think that is left for whoever can judge to pay attention. But mine is not about looks. Looks are not what matter here. What matters to me here is the future of the people of the Southern Cameroons that some people are trying to gamble with. Let me give you some clear evidence that La République du Cameroun means assimilation, and they have no intention of ever relenting. Even while this struggle is going on, even while the outcry is out there that our institutions, that our system, that our educational system, our legal system are being eroded, La République du Cameroun is still continuing. I saw circulating on social media, and I verified that effectively it was on Cameroon Tribune, that the GCE board has been transformed into a parastatal. Now, take note. According to the text creating the University of Boya, the vice chancellor of that institution and all the officials are not supposed to be appointed by presidential decree. They should be elected by Senate. Now, the GCE board had that system of designating its officials. No more. Presidential decrees are moving into the GCE board. Henceforth, the registrar of the GCE board, the deputy registrar, and every other person will be appointed by presidential decree. That is to guarantee that tomorrow you will have a francophone appointed registrar of the GCE board to continue the destruction of our system as they've always done. I think this is clear indication to you going forward that these people are not ready, will never be ready to leave our system alone. So when they come deceiving you that, oh, you see, there are going to be chances, perhaps if we get into federalism, we just need to negotiate a deal. Negotiate a deal with who? These people are not ready for the negotiation of any deal. They are going to make you Mirage, a kind of system that they guarantee you will have. That is only to make sure they break the momentum we have currently that will ride us to total and absolute freedom. The people of Southern Cameroon should not be deceived. The only thing we have to gun for right now is the full freedom we deserve. I have said it over and over that any time you settle for less than you deserve, you will end up with less than you even ever settled for. I say this and I insist. Mr. Paul Biya right now is going to be forced at some point to appear to make a lot of compromises. In fact, he will do. This is because even after he has fought so hard and played games and all that and secured a victory for another 7 years, that victory has ended up as a Pyrrhic victory. Pyrrhic victory because all the international stakeholders that should comfort Mr. Paul Biya in his position are rather turning a lot of heat on La République du Cameroun today. We all followed the nature of international pressure that is coming to bear on him. First, we have seen the International Crisis Group that has completely dismissed the nature of elections organized in La République du Cameroon, called them a sham, and made clear that those elections have failed to solve the political crisis ongoing in the country. Number two, we have seen the Mandela Center completely dismiss those elections and even called for a total recount of the ballots in all 25,000 polling stations. That is very indicative. We have listened to the Archbishop of Douala, Archbishop Cleda, pointed out very clearly in unequivocal terms at a press conference that it would be so embarrassing to ever say anywhere, and he can't believe it, that Mr. Paul Biya won the elections in the far north, in the northwest, and in the southwest, because it defeats logic to imagine that someone is inflicting total pain on people, slaughtering them and everything, and at the same time, the people elect him to such an extent of 80, 70, and whatever percent. These are all indicators to the fact that there is a lot of trouble coming that way. And we have all listened to Radio France International, where we are told that even the French presidency is totally frustrated and terrified at what is happening in Cameroon. They are not pleased with Mr. Paul Biya's victory. They are worried over what is happening in southern Cameroon, and even more so because the degree of internationalization of our crisis is such that right now, not only the United States of America, but other superpowers are also already threatening to table the matter before the UN Security Council. These are all indications that under pressure, Mr. Biya is going to do at least a number of things. Number one, he is going to intensify the killing of our people. He is going to send out more and more troops to become even more ferocious against our people, because he believes that perhaps by doing that, he can quickly quell the uprising by military means, so that it tells the world, by the way, I am done with the so-called terrorists, and so peace and everything has returned to my country. That's the first approach. But if he fails at that level, he is going to make lousy speeches make lousy political promises with no intention of ever keeping them. By the way, anyone who believes that anything that comes out of Mr. Biya's mouth can be a promise to hang on to, I ask you, has he personally supervised the construction of the ring road he promised to personally supervise over 28 years ago? Your guess is as good as mine. We are going to see Mr. Paul Biya appear to soften, just like a serpent deceiving its prey. And before you know it, it will strike. My dear people, we don't have to fall to any ploy. We have to be very careful going forward. We must remain steadfast. We must remain after that which we desire, after that which a lot of our people have died fighting for. Those people who have died, who are already in their thousands, because some people in some news media still talk about 400, 500 people who are dead. My personal estimate, with all the counts of deaths reported here and there and all whatnot, and corroborated by those of a lot of other sources on ground zero, indicate that over 3,000 people have already been killed in southern Cameroon within the framework of this crisis. But because they are killed in isolation, in small numbers here and there are some who are killed and buried we can't even see. The other day, we all saw images of barks floating over water in Menchum, and people who had the opportunity to open have indicated to us that those are corpses of young boys and girls slaughtered by soldiers and dissimulated in that kind of manner, so that you will not even take note that that is what is happening. Lately, they have not only killed, but they have killed and burnt corpses. This is a clear indication to us that the degree of brutality we are facing from La République du Cameroon will never change. So if they ever come soft and everything, just so that we should pay attention and some heed to something called federalism, be careful. We are going to dig the abyss not only for ourselves who are alive today, but for generations upon generations of Southern Cameroonians still to come. We are taking the option that this particular crisis, that the troubles and tribulations of the people of the former British Southern Cameroons should end in our generation. And I insist that we must do everything to make sure that it ends in our generation. Mr. Paul Biya is going again to be particularly brutal because there is a delegation of the Confederation of African Football that will be arriving in La République du Cameroon in the days ahead. They will visit infrastructure with respect to the security situation of the country. And one of the stadia where they expect to stage their tournament next year in June of 2019 is in Victoria, in Southern Cameroon. So they will want to do everything, deceive people, give a face, so that they will assure CAF all is well. And so they can be free to come and stage their tournament on our territory. My dear people, we have to wise up. But we will only be truly wise if we push our leaders, all of our leaders, if all of us who continue to support true groups, basically, push our leaders to understand that the only way we can make it, that we can survive the challenges before us, will be by talking at least with one voice, then we'll be a failure. We have to remind ourselves, we have to push each other to understand that the world cannot talk to a divided people. Let us not deceive ourselves. There is no single group that right now is seen by anyone in the world as having the legitimate power to talk alone on behalf of the people of Southern Cameroon. The world sees disorder. We can only show them order by working together. And they understand very clearly that as long as they don't talk to everybody put together, group together, working together, as long as they don't see us working together, we are going to be a very disorganized bunch. We are going to be seen constantly as a people with no vision. But that is not true. There are a lot of people among us who know that we have a clear vision where we are going to. But this vision will only become very visible when we put our heads together and truly work together and forget about all other forms of interest and think only Ambazonia, think only Southern Cameroons, think only our people first. Keep behind all other interests. That is the only magic. That is the only way we can actually bolster our activities, bolster our actions, and give our people the hope that they so desire. This is a sacred duty we must fulfill. If at all, we really want our people to continue to believe that we are really determined to take them to Boya. God is with us.